Turn on the financial news right now, and you will hear a very specific narrative taking hold. Inflation is finally cooling down, the numbers are stabilizing, and the broader economy appears to be catching its breath. But talk to the average household, and you get a completely different story. Millions of Americans feel significantly poorer today than they did 2 years ago. It creates a frustrating disconnect. You might see a little relief at the gas pump and read optimistic headlines, but when it comes time to pay rent, buy groceries, or cover the electric bill, the financial pressure remains crushing. The confusion comes down to a widespread misunderstanding of what cooling inflation actually means. When people hear the inflation rate is dropping, they naturally assume prices will reverse and drop back to normal. They do not. Cooling inflation simply means prices are still rising, just at a slower pace. The financial drain on American wallets has locked itself firmly into place. Surviving the initial shock of soaring prices in 2022 and 2023 was only the first phase. The permanent, structural reality left behind is the true, long-term threat to everyday wealth. To understand the mechanics of disinflation, look at these two metrics. The descending line represents the inflation rate dropping toward zero, but the top line, the actual price of everyday goods, remains steadily high. That massive vertical gap is our permanent pricing floor. Food is only a fraction of the problem. Hidden costs are eating away at household budgets. Auto and home insurance premiums, healthcare deductibles, and utility bills have all marched upward. This comparative bar chart shows how those expenses shift the baseline. Look at a standard monthly income 3 years ago versus today. The section for immovable structural costs drastically expands, squeezing the remaining discretionary income to a sliver. Because these fixed costs have recalibrated to claim such a large absolute percentage of an average household's budget, even families who negotiated nominal salary increases over the last couple of years are mathematically losing ground. American families have been permanently forced into a higher cost of living bracket, entirely separated from the underlying wages needed to comfortably support it. When the initial price shock hit, millions of people had to find a way to bridge the gap between their paycheck and their immediate needs. The most accessible tool was the credit card. Watch what happens when compounding interest applies to those survival balances. Over 24 months, a small debt block rapidly multiplies into a towering stack. Compare that aggressive, exponential debt growth against the flat, slowly creeping line representing average wage growth. Catching up is mathematically impossible. The math proves this debt trap is built entirely on basic necessities. Credit card balances are surging because families are using them to cover groceries, car repairs, and medical bills, not luxury goods. The trap is completely set. Families are pinned under permanently elevated living costs, while whatever resources they have left are systematically siphoned off by the compounding cost of their past survival. If this situation is so precarious on the ground, financial markets shouldn't be celebrating. But Wall Street loves a cooling inflation report because it signals that the central bank might finally cease raising interest rates. There is a major vulnerability baked into that corporate optimism. The entire financial system relies on consumers continuing to spend money, and that spending power is currently suffocating under the household debt trap. The chronological threat is highly predictable. When debt-trapped consumers are eventually forced to stop buying, corporate revenues fall. When revenues fall, businesses freeze hiring, and broader economic growth grinds to a halt. Navigating 2026 requires a different approach to personal finance. The primary goal is no longer chasing a higher gross salary. The objective right now is ruthless cash flow protection. Defensive strategy dictates 2 immediate actions: aggressively eliminating compounding high-interest debt and fiercely controlling discretionary spending to force a wider gap between your income and your fixed expenses. Prioritizing the buildup of a liquid, accessible emergency reserve currently provides a much stronger tactical advantage than chasing high-risk returns in the stock market. In an era of disinflation, true wealth is measured by cash retention. It all comes down to exactly how much money a household can mathematically protect from the silent drain.